Scott Hurst joins me now with more on this. Hi, Scott. So what's the latest on these disputes?
Good morning, Renee. Industries, businesses, thousands of workers who rely on the movement of goods to and from these ports, all the way down to average Canadian consumers, Renee, like you and me, all bracing for impact of these twin shutdowns at Canada's two largest ports. And there could be a significant impact and a significant ripple effect here, as hundreds of dock workers in Montreal have now been locked out, with talks at an impasse. Some 1,200 dock workers are off the job. The union saying scheduling, one of the main sticking points. CUPE members voting overwhelmingly in favor of rejecting the final offer. And dock workers at the Port of Montreal have been without a contract since last December, joining workers now from Vancouver who've been locked out for a week. The labor disruptions could cause chaos to Canada's supply chain. And adding to Colton's comment about timing for potential Canada Post strike, the timing here also playing a significant role in the concern over the impact. The two shutdowns impacting hundreds of millions of dollars worth of goods every day, and the significant ripple effect that could be a threat to businesses and consumers as we get into the busiest time of the year for consumers. The holiday shopping season, of course, Renee, looms large over all of these talks at the two major ports in Vancouver and Montreal, and adding to what Colton said, at potentially Canada Post strike as well. So lots of labor issues that need to be worked out that could have a significant impact on all the way down to us as the consumers.
Certainly no one would begrudge these workers for working for fair pay, wanting to get what is fair to them. But of course, you mentioned ripple effects. The holidays are coming up. Will the government step in?
Yeah, Renee, of course, you can't blame these workers for standing firm, wanting to get a contract offer that they feel is fair. But now business groups are calling on the federal government to step in to intervene in these negotiations so that there isn't this massive ripple effect across the country. Labor Minister Stephen McKinnon has said that both sets of negotiations were progressing at an insufficient pace and urging all parties involved to work something out. But we're expecting to hear from the minister later this morning in less than an hour's time to provide an update on the status of the disruptions at the ports in Montreal and Vancouver, Renee. So we'll bring that to you as soon as he begins to speak, and see if there are any significant updates in the negotiations and these two major work stoppages in Montreal and Vancouver.
East to west international shipments are at a standstill. Dock workers have been locked out at the Port of Montreal since Sunday. In British Columbia, they've been off the job for more than a week.
As Canada's Minister of Labour,
a dispute Ottawa says has gone on for too long.
As the economic losses threaten the country and begin to mount, it is up to the government to ensure that a fair settlement's reached.
Labour Minister Steve McKinnon did not give an exact date for when the ports will reopen, but insists it will be in a matter of days. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce says the disruptions have already cost the Canadian economy $1.2 billion a day.
We need to show our international trading partners that they can rely on Canadian businesses. And with these repeated shutdowns, we're not showing that. We're effectively advertising that Canada is closed for business.
This is the second time in less than a year the Liberals have made the controversial decision to order binding arbitration.
The right to strike is supposed to be a constitutionally protected right, and they've really been infringing on that quite frequently.
Another work stoppage is looming. Canada Post will be in a legal strike position as of Friday.
We've taken a hit back on our wages. We are also asking for staffing levels, and also importantly that Canada Post needs to provide a service to Canadians.
It comes as the busy holiday season approaches and threatens a Crown corporation that warns it's at a critical juncture financially.
We've lost $3 billion over the last 5 years, and this year's not going to be any better. In fact, it's going to be a lot worse. So.
Labor experts say Canada is in a period of turmoil not seen in decades. Numbers from Statistics Canada show more workdays were lost to labor disruptions last year than in the last 38 years.
Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor is due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles, the great millstone and rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. News in this gospel, rather from the stern of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be, This is a quick lesson through the spirit. It says Montreal port strike is expected to cost up to $55 million a day, which I believe they mentioned that it was like I believe it was like $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Two different figure numbers. All right, but it says Canada shuts down port strike as backlogs grow. All right, which is an article on this whole Canadian border strike, as we had one that hit, I believe, the Eastern Coast last month or maybe 2 months ago, which they was talking about striking up into the new year. But I believe they reached some type of short-term agreement. Well, I believe like it's at a standstill until like the beginning of the year. Then I think they're going to petition for another strike. But either way it goes, it spells doom for the Western hegemonies of the world, which Canada is part of the National Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is NATO, okay, which is a direct blow to the United States economy, because even though this is Canada, they still have trades with with America through stocks and bonds and particular goods that ship from their ports, because it's all pretty much one and the same. Okay, if you go in depth, all right. But it says Canada shuts down port strikes as backlogs grow. And it reads the Canadian government regulators have stepped in to end port strikes on both the country's east and west coasts, with Federal Labor Minister Stephen McKinnon forcing the reopening of shipping facilities by ordering a Canadian Industrial Relations Board to mandate binding arbitration according to published reports. But it says in taking that step, the Canadian government cited the growing economic damage and the potential for driving away traditional partners if operations remain stopped at major ports like Vancouver and Montreal, which are one of the two biggest delegates of Canada as far as goods is concerned. Okay, Vancouver, and then you have Montreal. But also understanding that with these port strikes, that's halting up supply chains. And like he stated, that they've lost over $3 billion over 5 years, and they planning to expect a worse year. And this comes at a bad time when the holiday season is approaching, because this is the time now that everybody starts their Christmas shopping, mainly around Black Friday, when, everybody get things allegedly 50% off, which technically on Black Friday, they're giving you the true price or around the value that it's really worth. But everything you buy throughout the year is pretty much a price markup because, profiting. But it says, following that move, port operations expected to resume soon, and mechanics have already been dispatched. It's like a long day to service equipment and cranes, ensuring readiness for prompt resumption according to the update from the Notum Logistics. But it reads terminals will likely receive clearance to resume all operations by Wednesday, not a Thursday, following a final approval to the CIRB to officially return to full operational status, Notum said. It says the week-long strike followed workers' demands for protection against automation, and this is the same thing that they were striking for here. Automation and higher pay wages, because, without the port workers, the dock workers, pretty much everything comes to halt, because though you can fly things over here through cargo plane, you have trains and then you have trucks to pretty much take them to the distribution centers, and then the distribution centers take them to the stores, and there you go. And this is how they get their goods. But nothing moves when your port workers and when your guys or the dock workers go on strike, because everything has to come from a particular port in order to be delegated to the proper region of the country, and also through logistics and distribution centers, man. So let's just say if you had like 100 Walmarts on the East Coast that needed to have a certain fuel before a specified time, and you got the orders that made in, because everything come over here through transit time as far as maritime, and then you got things that fly over, but mostly things come over here in ships, because we know that America, they outsource everything, okay? Import in and outsource out. So therefore, there's no real autonomy here as far as creating goods here to sustain your economy. So they're depending on countries like China, Taiwan, Vietnam, places like that, Mexico, which I believe they get the avocados from, if I'm not mistaken, but places like that overseas, they depend to get their goods, because they outsource everything. And this is a consumer nation. So they don't really create anything. So therefore, when things come across the seas, and it tells you that in Revelation, the 18th chapter, how roughly paraphrasing, how when this place shuts down, those that traded by sea basically are going to wail for the fall of Babylon the Great, because they're not going to make that money. But basically, you got ships coming to and fro to Babylon the Great to different countries. And let's just say if you had 100 ships that dock in an eastern port or whatever you want to call it, and they have a certain time to get these things to stores before holiday seasons, and they go on strike, then nobody's going to move the freight off the ships, okay? Because for the simple fact, nobody's going to be working. But then again, they got automation, because they're like, well, wait a minute, if you niggas ain't working, then we just going to make everything, automated. That way we have AI and we have computers to take care of the heavy loads. And therefore, eventually, we ain't got to worry about y'all coming to work. And this is one reason why they want to replace everybody, because, robots don't request strikes and higher pay wages, which would displace a lot of people, which will cause a flaw in this design. But overall, if nobody comes to work, then those goods are not going to be moved. And the only thing you can really distribute to the stores and to the distribution centers is what you already have in rotation or what you already have in transit. So if nobody goes to work on the docks, then it's a pretty much stalemate, all right, which can spell a disaster for the economy, because they even said here in America that they was losing like 7 million a day or something like that. So that's a lot of money. But it says the week-long strike followed workers' demands for protection against automation, better work-life balance, and the cost of living crisis. It says it has already triggered delays and backups at nearly U.S. ports as shippers scramble to find new routes for imports, man. Okay, which shows you that America is in a free fall of a shutdown. And we've been telling people that this place is going to shut down because eventually they're going to collapse the money system and they're going to bring about this digital system. And that's where all this is, reverting to. But it says here, supply chains are poised for accelerated adoption of mobile robots and drones as those technologies mature and companies focus on implementing artificial intelligence and automation across the logistics operation, right? Because, like I said, robots, they don't need breaks off. Okay, the most they may need is like maintenance repairs and, to go on the assembly line, to put the proper particular utensils to use to keep these things up and running. But overall, they don't need a break. They don't need a $30 an hour pay raise. Okay, they don't need vacation time. So once they program this is why AI is going to be important to the new world, because AI learns of human behavior. So if you have artificial intelligence that's mimicking human behavior, it's nothing to put a robot in a factory, and before you know it, it's like a full-fledged human. Okay, I mean, they've already got the exoskeletons, they have the mainframes, they have the chips, they have all this shit. Like Megan, even though Megan looked like a doll, eventually you ain't gonna be able to tell the difference between an actual AI robot and an actual human being, man. And they show you in these movies like iRobot, The Matrix, Terminator, Megan, the redid Child's Play. They show you in a lot of these movies, and a lot of movies on Amazon, like, little bootleg movies. But they show you about this new coming AI system, which AI is the way of the world now, But it reads here, it says that's according to the data from Gartner's hype cycle for mobile robots and drones released this week. But the report shows that several mobile robotic technologies will mature over the next 2 to 5 years, and also identify a breakthrough in rising technologies are set to have an impact on, this is a whole different thing, a whole different article. Set to have an impact further out, even though, this is 2 different articles, but still going into the whole automation of things, because it all goes under one umbrella, so to speak. But with the shutdowns and the port strikes and all this shit will lead to possibly a famine, okay, the collapse of the dollar, and sooner than later, inflation, because you got this guy Trump that's talking about eliminating at least $1 billion from the economy every year or so. But then again, I believe they stated that it's going to cost $80 billion to do the mass deportation of migrants, which I don't know where he's going to get that money from. But eventually, things are just going to shut down, all right? So I got a couple of precepts here. This wasn't going to be a long lesson, but this is the book of Habakkuk 3. And I'm going to start at verses... let's start at verses... 17. It says here, even though the fig trees have no blossoms, and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crops fail and the fields lie empty and barren, even though the flocks die in the fields and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, and I will be joyful in the power of my salvation. For the sovereign Lord is my strength, all right? And that's the point. We're going to be straight in these times, but you people, you're getting ready to fall all over yourselves, because for the simple fact that tension has already been arose in Babylon, man, just due to a weak-ass election, man, that was already set up from the get-go. You see, so what happens when they attack the food supply? When there's no more food and there's no more water, when everything is rationed out. This is what's going to push the people over edge, and this is what's going to cause people to opt into the MOTB. If you want people to take the mark of the beast, only thing you got to do is do an economic, well, cause the economy to collapse, which the dollar is falling. But not only that, famine has to set in, okay? And people would do anything when it comes to putting food in their belly. So if Esau was wise, that would be his next play in order to get the MOTB instituted. Okay, use a famine, a manufactured famine, and a dollar collapse, and watch people run down there to get that mark of the beast, man. Okay, and you got other Israelites out there that's stating that we stupid and that we have a stupid outlook on the mark of the beast. But wait a minute, man. The scriptures say the mark of the beast is going to come in a time that economic turmoil, and when all hell is breaking loose, like the scriptures say, you can't buy or sell or trade without it. So it has to be tied to some type of economic system, which is this current U.S. dollar, which is destined to collapse, which will plunge the world into global chaos, man. Okay, because once the U.S. dollar collapses, then pretty much all currencies collapse, because the dollar is the U.S. reserve currency. And this is why you have BRICS that's trying to find a way out of that, or they're trying to opt out of using the U.S. dollar, because they want to be they want to be sustained in their own manner, to the point that they don't have to deal with the dollar when it does collapse, man. You know, so this is what we were getting ready to witness. And while you people are playing games, you know, hey, they say a possibility they may strike again on the west. Oh, what is it? The eastern coast. I think it was back in September, if I'm not mistaken, when they went on strike. It may have been October or September, but regardless of that, man, you know, this has happened frequently, you know. So through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, it's just a matter of time. You see? So this is the book of Joel 1, and I'm going to start at verses 10. It says, the fields are ruined and the land is stripped bare, and the grain is destroyed. The grapes have shriveled and the olive oil is gone. Despair, all you farmers. Well, all you vine growers, weep, because the wheat and barley and all the crops of the field are ruined. And the grapevines have dried up, and the fig trees have withered, and the pomegranate trees, the palm trees, and the apple trees, and all the fruit trees have dried up, and the people's joy has dried up with them, all right? And it's the point, you know, the Lord is getting ready to take away the staff of bread, like it tells us in the book of Jeremiah, that the Lord is getting ready to smite the staff of bread in Judah. Matter of fact, let me pull that staff of bread, because right now you have an abundance of food. You can go, you know, get you 2 Big Macs. You can still get the, you know, the $5 meal at McDonald's. You get you a burger, fries, drinking, a side of chicken McNuggets for $5-6. You know, even though the dollar menu was no more, but they still dish out these deals here. Okay, you can go to Arby's and get a 2 for $7. Okay, you can go to fucking Burger King. You can get the 2 for $6 double Whopper with the chicken fries on the side and a side of what do you call that sauce? Honey mustard. You know, so you still have an abundance of places where you can eat, even though a decent hamburger will run you about $14-15, which is totally outrageous, you know, but you still have access to food until the Lord is, you know, until he decides to pull a plug on it, man. All right. This is Psalms 105:16. It says, moreover, he called for a famine upon the land, and he brake the whole staff of bread. And this is talking about in Egypt. OK, when the Most High brought the plague upon Egypt, he destroyed the economy thereof, all right, and washed up all the crops, and, you know, everything failed, you know, and then the Lord brought I believe it was 10 plagues? And we're getting ready to see those plagues in like manner, which technically America is already under plague, especially of these flies, these bugs, man, because everywhere I go, you have a over influx of gnats and biting midges and mosquitoes, and it's damn near wintertime, and yet you still got bugs outside living, man. All right, and that's due to a flaw in the ecosystem, because Esau is destroying fucking life, man. You know, spraying pesticides you know, on the crops. He's spraying chemtrails in the air and everything just out of whack. So even the bugs and the mosquitoes are living longer than what they should, you know. Here it is, 65 degrees outside, 50 degrees outside, and yet you got gnats flying around in the damn house. Like, I thought they died off, you know. But anyway, it says, moreover, he called for a famine upon the land, and he brake the whole staff of bread. And he set a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant. But the point is, it says he called for a famine. So, hey, once these ports shut down and once the dollar goes, then the famine sets in. And when the famine sets in, this is when people are going to literally lose it. Okay, because the scriptures say that all knees should be weak and feeble. All right, and be weak as water, roughly paraphrasing it. And it says that they should crowd upon the mountains and wealth. And basically they should eat the flesh of their own bodies, because cannibalism is coming back in a big way. And one thing about these Americans that you have to understand is that they would do anything for some food. And if they haven't ate 3 or 4 days, these people will really lose it. Okay, so I can very well see a famine in the immediate future. And a lot of these judgments are just going to happen simultaneously. Okay, here you got the pestilence, then famine, or you got the collapse, then the famine, the pestilence, you know, then the chip, then war, you know. But in the midst of famine and pestilence and economic collapse, you're going to have the riots, you're going to have the FEMA camps, you're going to have the racial tensions. All those prophecies snowball into one big effect. So all those prophecies could literally happen within one prophecy. All right, because you ain't going to have to wait 10 years after the famine, then the pestilence, and then after the pestilence, the chip. No. Those are going to roll right into one another, because each prophecy sets up the next. Okay, so, hey, the Lord is getting ready to make his power moves here. But anyway, a couple more precepts here. Staff, bread. This is Isaiah 3:1. This is the one I'm actually looking for. It says, behold, the Lord and the Lord of hosts doth take away from Jerusalem and Judah the stay and the staff, and the whole stay of bread, and the whole stay of water. All right. And it says, and a mighty man and a man of war, the judge and the prophet and the prudent and the ancient. All right. It says, and a captain of 50 and an honorable man and a counselor and a cunning artificer and an eloquent orator. All right. And it says, and I will give them to be princes, and babes should rule over them. And overall, the Lord is getting ready to strike this system all at once. All right. So from the prudent to the least prudent to the men that have the so-called pristine in this society, from you so-called top Hebrew Israelite leaders out there, you different groups, hey, all of you are getting ready to get hit in your wallets, man. Because we notice that men that follow these other groups, or that's in leadership of these other groups, they major thing is money, you know, and being able to live lavishly. But what happens when these things become halt and there's no more food, there's no more bread? Okay, and it's not saying that there will be a shortage, but things are going to be delegated out. Things are going to be brought out and rationed and controlled. Okay, so, hey, this is why this MOTB system is going to be very important to the elites, because it's like a caste system, you know. One last precept, and I end it here. 2nd Ezra 6, and I'm going to start at verses 22. And it says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, and full storehouses shall be suddenly found empty. Right, because when no trucks is going in and out of these stores, and they're not making it to the distribution centers, then, hey, that's murder, she wrote. Now, peep this. I had purchased something on November the 3rd, and I just got it today. It's supposed to be here last week, and I called. I'm like, where the hell is my package at? And they gave me some bullshit excuse like, oh, well, you know, we're backed up. We're backed up. And back in my mind, I'm like, that's bullshit, because ain't nothing really moving like that. So, I mean, they could have been backed up. But overall, it's because there's a shortage of shit, too, you know, and it ain't that many workers to go around. You know, FedEx is pretty good about getting things here within sometimes 2 to 5 business days, as well as UPS. But FedEx delivered this, and they had to turn around and send it back to the distribution center just to send it back to through USPS just for them to deliver it. So obviously there's some supply chain issues going on somewhere, because it shouldn't take 2 weeks for such a small package to get here, man. But that's becoming a common norm. You know, even when I get things sent to me, whether it be from brothers or sisters, man, for whatever reason, it always have a hard time reaching. It's like they'll send it back, and then they'll hold it, and then sometimes it just won't come. All right, but that shows you that Babylon the Great is slowing down, and eventually the Lord is going to pull a plug on this goddamn place. And good, you know, because it's about time. All right, Revelation 18, and I'm going to start at verses 9. It says, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her should bewail her and lament for her when they should see the smoke of her burning. And this is when this place is destroyed, when those missiles hit, which literally this is right around the corner. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth should weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Now, when you look up the word merchant, right, get some edification on it. It goes into emperos, which means one on a journey, whether by sea or by land for trade. Okay, it says a merchant as opposed to a retailer or petty tradesman. But this deals with whether by sea or by land. Okay, and America deals heavy in maritime law. All right, going back into this article here. Port strikes, and what do you see here? Barges. Okay, and this is what it's talking about. Going down here, and it reads, it says the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones of pearl and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all thine wood and all manners of vessels of ivory and all manners of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil, which America, man, they have oil reserves that lasts on the next 600 years. And wine alone, all right? They have wine cellars I'm talking about. They got, I went to wine tasting, man, and they broke down on how they age and wines in these barrels and how they break it down and how they crush it through vineyards. It's a pretty interesting process, you know, and they have an abundance of wine here. But even then, a lot of that shit they pack on the West Coast, that California, a lot of that stuff is no good, man. You know, but it says in fine flour and wheat and beast and sheep, which is livestock, horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men, which slavery was a big time, part-time of Esau's maritime system. Because how did we get over here? By cargo slave ships. And it says in souls of men and slaves, hey, the sex trafficking, okay, which that's on the black market, which that's a heavy multi-billion-dollar billion-dollar industry that the elites of the society and government officials and, you know, these high-up sportsmen and the elites, they all engage in that in one way or another. Okay, like the whole Biden administration, even the Trump administration, they all have some ties to the whole Diddy scandal and the whole Epstein files and all this shit. You know, Hugh Hefner, all these guys, Silverstein, all these men are involved in that. But this is what it goes into, you know. And I'm going to go down here to verses, verses 19. And it says, and they should cast dust on their heads and cried and weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city, which is talking about America, because America is actually a big city because it doesn't have borders. It doesn't have walls. It just pretty much through, when I say borders, it has no, it doesn't have walls. Okay, and it don't really have borders. It's just open land. You know, the most you may go through a state is crossing the bridge or crossing the river. But they have state lines, okay? They have what they call, it's another word for state called, damn, it's on the tip of my tongue. I use it pretty often. Provinces, all right? But they don't have walls here. So you can just go from Illinois to Missouri through crossing the bridge and bam, you in a whole different territory. But it reads, it says, wherein she was made rich, all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour she made desolate, all right? So rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for the Most High have avenged you on her. And the mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, had to bring that out, and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and should be found no more at all. So those scriptures tells us in detail on how this place is going to get taken out, man, all right? So anyway, brothers, I'm going to end it here, giving all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Lord's will, you were edified. To the next lesson. Shalom.